Welcome to Grit, Grace, and Growth, a podcast where we explore stories of incredible women overcoming challenges and growing their dreams. I'm your host, Laura Navaquin, and today's episode is all about resilience, grit, and the belief that we can do hard things no matter the obstacles that we are faced with. Today, our guest, Mary Wiegand, embodies that spirit exactly. She is the founder and CEO of Boone LLC, a company that she built with a vision of transforming inventory planning in the retail industry. After navigating a personal challenge in 2020 as a single mom of four, she harnessed her strength to push her business to new heights. I'm so excited to hear all about her journey, her approach to overcoming challenges, and how she built a successful business while balancing her life with a big blended family. So, Mary, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laura. It's so great to be here with you today.
I can't wait to get into our conversation. I know that I've looked through your website. I know some of your story. And today's episode is all about being able to do hard things, no matter the challenges and obstacles that life throws at us. And going through some of your history that you shared with me previously, I know that you had a successful corporate career, then you took the leap into entrepreneurship with Boone LLC. Let's
Mhm.
just kick it off from there and share with me a little bit about your experience overall and what were some of the initial challenges when you did take that leap into entrepreneurship with Boone LLC.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. My corporate career prior was all in the retail space. I loved what I did. I really enjoyed being involved in, I'm in the inventory side of retail, so really enjoyed learning and really growing within that retail space through multiple corporations, large mass retailers, luxury retailers, specialty retailers. But in my making the leap to entrepreneurship was really out of necessity, as many
Hmm.
entrepreneurs come to be, right? So for
Hmm.
me, it was the idea that at the time I was the mother of two kids, and I really, really wanted to use all the skills that I had gained through my corporate career, but couldn't find any opportunity that allowed me to have a blend of using that skill set while still being able to be the mother that I wanted to be and have, some flexibility to life. As many corporate careers, you're tied to an office 9 to 5, you're working well over 40 hours a week, and it just wasn't something that was conducive to the life that I wanted. So I built it. I said, okay, I got to start with something that I can do and create the role that I was looking for in the industry. That I started it in 2017. So it was a little bit
Hmm.
before this whole idea of like flexible work and fractional support really existed. So the challenges in the beginning were to honestly, for myself, navigate what is this company going to be? How can I take the skills I've had and really turn it into the job that I want it to be as I navigated those first couple of years, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I know that Boone LLC is very similar or similarly related as far as industry to what you did in the corporate world.
Yes.
And would you be able to explain a little bit more what Boone LLC offers to their consumer or to the end user?
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Yeah. So as I said, my career was in corporate retail. So Boone
Mhm.
as a company now takes those same skills. And what we really focus on is supporting product-based businesses. So
Mhm.
any brand that's selling any kind of product and helping them make sure they have their inventory management and demand forecasts aligned. And what does that mean? That means we do a lot of math. We look at the trends of what has been selling. We look at how much stock you have across the assortment, where maybe you're running over stock or under stock, and really recommending replenishment quantities to say, hey, buy more of the red sweater in size medium at this time
Mhm.
so that you don't run out. But don't buy the purple sweater anymore because it's looking like it's going to be overstocked. And
Mhm.
working to make sure that these brands can protect their inventory, which is their most valuable asset, of course, and usually their
Mhm.
highest cash outlay for any brand. And really just kind of getting into spreadsheets and making sure that we're doing that day in and day out for these brands. The difference from Boone from the corporate job is having been at the big corporations, we're taking this skill set and bringing it to brands that otherwise might not have access to this type of expertise. So brands that you're following on Instagram or brands that are up and coming from a direct to consumer like e-commerce platform and are working to expand into wholesale. they're not looking to hire somebody full time. They don't have the budget to pull, an experienced demand forecaster or inventory planner in. And so that's where Boone really allows them to have expertise without the expense of a full-time hire.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's great that you were able to find a solution as far as what it is that you can do as an entrepreneur. So, what type of business you can start that's still aligned with your experience and everything that you had done in your career previously. I know even similar for myself, and I won't go too far into detail, but when I left the corporate world and trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I was an entrepreneur, and I had a few different businesses that between my husband and I, we had founded and were starting, but I was trying to figure out what am I really going to put all my time and energy into and scale, and how am I going to really support myself financially with these other endeavors. And what I had done previously was group health insurance, which was offering benefits to employers for their employees. So I didn't necessarily know how to transition that unless I went into being an agent or a broker. And that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily something I was wanting to do off the bat. So I do love that you were able to take your experience and transition that over into entrepreneurship and find success with that. That's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to 2022, I know that you previously mentioned that you faced some personal challenges while growing your business. Uh, can you share how you managed to navigate that particular difficult time, and perhaps what mindset or practices helped you push through those hard times that you were experiencing in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, we sit here 4 years later, we're all post-pandemic. Obviously,
Hmm.
2020 was a year that was hard for so many. And I think it's something that we all can reflect back on and know, regardless of what your exact situation was during 2020, you have a story to tell, right? So
Hmm.
I also have a story to tell. I don't think that it is harder than anybody else's. I think the point of this is to say we can do hard things. And if you learn
Hmm.
anything from this, it's that when you're faced with that adversity, know that you can do hard things, right?
Hmm.
So my
Yes.
personal story, right, starts out with the beginning of 2020. I was actually pregnant with twins at the time.
Hmm.
So kicked off that year, was pregnant with twins, was already the mom to two kids. So this was going to
Hmm.
be my third and fourth child. And I was very pregnant when the world actually shut down. So I was one of those who was sitting watching the news, hearing that, hospitals were going to be overrun with COVID patients. And I knew that I was going to have to deliver in a hospital in an operating room because they were high
Hmm.
risk twins. So I was incredibly nervous to just first be living in a global pandemic, and second to be pregnant with twins and having to be one of those that was going to need medical attention. I can remember vividly, going to prenatal appointments and just feeling so like the world was such a different place. And what am I bringing these children into? And, just uncertainty as to masks. I mean, we think back to those early weeks. I didn't wear a mask for the first few prenatal appointments I had. And I was going 2 or 3 times a week. But it was back when they were saying, you don't have to wear a mask, or, masks weren't available. So eventually I did deliver both of my boys in April of 2020. So just a few weeks into the actual closing of pandemic. And it was wonderful to have them. I ended up obviously being fine in the OR and got the medical attention that I need. But I did deliver them alone. So it was just
Hmm.
me alone, as I'm sure many moms have experienced through the
Hmm.
type of pandemic that we all kind of had to manage through. However, I was also facing adversity at home at the same time. So I delivered them alone, both because of the pandemic, but also because the state of my marriage at the time was not in a good place. So having delivered the boys in April, I then actually left my current marriage in May. So when the boys were 4 weeks old, I was then became a single mom to kids who were age 5, 3, and then the twins at 0, 0. So I had to really find my way through, yeah, a closed society on my own with 4 very, very small children. And my own business at the same time, right? So it's like every single thing was coming at me, um, from personal, from being a mother, from being an entrepreneur, and just surviving at that point with the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, amazing to you. And it just shows the grit that you have and the capabilities that you had to continue pushing through those hard times because, you know, the pandemic for no one was an easy feat overall. And being able to manage those challenges that were coming towards you and still get up and rise each and every day to continue moving forward through those challenges.
Mhm.
So it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows so much. Like I said at the beginning, or the reason I said what I said before I told my story is we all have, grit and grace, and we
Hmm.
can grow and we can do hard things. So it's just one example. And if I can tell my story and someone feels not that like I was stronger than anyone else, but like, oh yeah, like women can do hard things. Like we can push
Hmm.
through. That's really where my energy comes from, is to make sure that I'm kind of giving back in that way. And I am here 4 years later. The kids are great. My business is phenomenal. I've managed to quote unquote get out and find myself again. It wasn't easy either, right? Like
Yeah.
none of this is just to say that, okay, yeah, I snapped my fingers and I got to where I am today. It was a ton of hard work in mentally. And I think you asked kind of like what tactics I used potentially to get there. It's hard. Looking back, when you're in such a fog of a pandemic and, like just having given birth, you're like, I don't know where my brain was half the time. I think I operated instincts. It was like fight or
Hmm.
flight, like from a true mom who can pull a car off a kid if a kid's, injured in that way. It was like I was pulling the literal or the figurative car off of them and
Hmm.
off of myself in order to try to push forward. Of course, I relied on my people. Like, wait,
Hmm.
anytime you have a concern or going through a hard time, you're going to find the right people who are going to support you. In a pandemic, it was definitely more difficult to find how to connect with people, but I think we all still came together. I think if anything, the world was coming together in a different way, but in a very strong way. So I
Hmm.
had virtual connections with people. I would call on the phone all the time. They would FaceTime with my kids. The older ones would just walk around with the phone, making
Hmm.
their grandparents dizzy as they ran around the house with the phone, but just staying connected where you could.
Hmm.
And then from the entrepreneurial side, I really gave myself like a goal to say, can I turn this? My initial
Hmm.
goal when I started Boone, right, was to supplement or to create the role I wanted that I didn't have in corporate life.
Hmm.
Once I, had to go through a different family situation, I had to figure out, can I make this support my kids and me, at least for, what my responsibility for them was.
Hmm.
And that's really where I tried to like buckle down from a work perspective too. So it gave me a goal. It said, I
Hmm.
need to work toward this for myself and my kids and my family, to push that entrepreneurial journey. And I'm grateful for it. Not that I wanted to go through it, but to know that I can. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and took resources from the entrepreneurial community too.
Hmm.
Um, I think the other thing, the timing of this at 2020 is kind of where that inflection point happened from a work world perspective, right? The working world changed, which actually aligned to Boone because we were always virtual and allowed
Hmm.
me to find resources in the entrepreneurial community that wouldn't have been there if the virtual world hadn't opened up at that same point. So I take a lot
Yeah.
of like positivity out of the timing of it all. As
Hmm.
crazy as it is to have gone through it during a global pandemic, it almost gave me resources and opportunities that I wouldn't have had if it had been 3 years prior. Or today there's still obviously all those resources, but
Hmm.
a couple years prior could have been a whole different situation.
So true. Such great information there with everything that you had shared. But also, a point that I wanted to touch on that you said early on in that response was that we can do hard things. And whether, as women and just in general, as humans, we can do and overcome hard things. But another thing that I want to pose there or be mindful of is that we all get knocked down in life in different ways. And the thing to remember sometimes, although we know that we can do hard things, is to sometimes we need the reminder. And I just kind of go back and think of my own personal, experiences or loved ones and their challenges that they have face and obstacles. Is sometimes when we're getting knocked down, it's sometimes easy to kind of just sulk in that and either feel sorry or feel like how am I going to get out of this? how am I going to overcome this? But being reminded and having the system around you, the network around you, or having that mindset to knowing that, although I'm in this circumstance and I'm going through these hard things, I can overcome them so that we can rise and continue moving forward out of those challenges. So I think, you did an amazing job. Your story is quite inspirational, and being able to pick up and move on through the number of challenges that you were faced with in 2020. And so I do want to move more current to current
Mhm.
day now.
Mhm.
And now, as a mother of four, and you're balancing a growing business and your family as well. And we know that those are not necessarily easy tasks within
Mhm.
themselves. What would you say, or what strategies or systems do you have in place now that you can ensure that you're showing up best for both sides? So you're showing up for the best that you can be as a mother and as your entrepreneur side.
Yeah, it's a great question, and truthfully, like a daily struggle still, right? Like I'm not going to sit
Hmm.
here and say I have it figured out. But the way I do it, and also just to add to the story, as we sit here today, I'm also the mom of 6 now. Not because
Okay.
I gave birth to 2 more, actually in a new relationship. Well, not new anymore, but
Hmm.
new since marriage, and I have 2 stepkids. So we actually live
Hmm.
with 6 in the house. So I
Okay.
have 6 kids between ages 4 and 11. And when I look at like how I show up now and how I can manage through at this point, I know you use the word balance, as does everybody, and I do not use that word in my vocabulary. So the way I say it is that I like blend all parts of my life back together, because there is no expectation that it's going to be balanced and that I'm going to spend 50% of my time at work and
Hmm.
50% of my time
Yeah.
on kids. It is always like this evolving idea of what's the most priority right now, what can I tackle in the moment, and what do I have to push to the side? And
Hmm.
of course, being the founder and CEO of a thriving consulting business, and being the mom of 6 kids and running a household, at times both of those are going to take priority. So
Hmm.
I try, it helps with kind of like the guilt on either side. If I just know that I'm not going to get in the same amount of hours of work every day, and I'm going to miss a kid thing or two at times, but I know that over the whole course of a week or a month, I'm going to blend them back together. I also am very big on lists and management and writing it down and putting it on a calendar so that I don't have to be the only one that mentally holds that.
Hmm.
As I said, my kids' ages, they're not old enough to really manage a lot of the stuff on their own, but my partner and I run really well as far as like what's happening with each kid any given day, who's on for bus stop, who's on for pickup,
Hmm.
and really allowing some of that burden that we're carrying to be spread across whoever might be able to support. My family doesn't live close, so I don't necessarily have like a nuclear family to support day to day, but I still rely on them. I just today sent them the kids' school pictures. I was like, hey, school pictures
Hmm.
came in. Like, let's celebrate this together. It took me a
Hmm.
few minutes to get them the photos, but it was a nice way to like bring everybody into our lives, even if they're not geographically close.
Hmm.
Um, and then just really, I really, really try to manage, like I said, day to day and hour by hour. They
Hmm.
say in parenting, the days are long and the years are short. And
Hmm.
that's of course true, but it's for me, it's like the hours can be long, or I really need to get down to like, what am I need to get done this next hour? What's most critical? And sort of tackle it as like an assembly line. Um, yeah, I will admit fully, and anyone who knows me personally knows that sleep is the one thing that has escaped me for like the last 4 years. I'm just not where I need to be in terms of managing my own self-care on the sleep side. But it's
Hmm.
something that I'm cognizant of, and I need to work toward finding more opportunities to actually get my body rest.
Yeah, that's a good point to make as well. And I love that you pointed out that correction in the beginning as well, because I'm guilty of using the idea of balance all too often. And very much like yourself, it's, not necessarily about balance. Some days I work 2 hours and some days I'm working from
Hmm.
dawn to dusk, if you will.
Yes.
But trying to figure out where I can show up and prioritize things in my life and be present for my kids' activities, family life, and whatever it may be, but then as well as showing up for my business. And yes, no 2 days really look alike as far as my schedule, but being able to show up and explaining that to my kids as well. I mean, I have a 7-year old, a 2-year old, and
Mm.
my baby, so he's too young to understand. But even especially for my 7-year old, and explaining to him like, hey, sometimes I have to work Saturday morning. You're watching cartoons
Mhm.
anyhow. But you know
Mhm.
what? Thursday afternoon, we spent the whole day or whatever it may be out doing this, or, something that's a little different. But having him understand that as well. But I love the way that you posed that and framed that whole idea, because it isn't necessarily about balance 50-50. It's reorganizing where we're providing our
Mhm.
time and energy and
Mhm.
focus. And yes, I can relate with you on the sleep thing as well. Sleep and just personal care overall. I'm mindful of it, and I'm trying to put in the sleep and the workouts. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of people now are doing, an hour, 30 minutes quiet time to myself. And like, I don't necessarily, I can't find that time for myself, but I do like just, waking up early, or not necessarily like
Mhm.
waking up early, but getting up early and having
Mhm.
my me time as I'm doing
Mhm.
some things. And I guess that'll be my personal time into some
Y
regard. And,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
I
think
can
that
relate
brings
to
up
there.
yeah, that brings up one other kind of like mental strategy there. And I think our society is very focused on making sure, women in particular are having their quote unquote self-care. And
Hmm.
I take that to be obviously a positive, but I don't want it shouldn't be like a stressful thing, right? Like I can
Hmm.
admit where I'm good and where I'm not as far as where I fit into the self-care box, but it's self-care to what works for you. I'm kind of the same way.
Hmm.
I am awake very early in the morning because I have a coffee before my kids get up. And that's
Hmm.
what's important to me, right? That to me, that one hot cup of coffee is a bunch of self-care. Yes, I
Hmm.
could spend 30 minutes doing a workout. I don't. I need the coffee. That's my self-care.
Hmm.
It's just about like what is personal to you that makes you feel like you're going to tackle that day the best, or you're like reviving yourself for that day. So I'm not one who loves the spa. I just have a little bit different than maybe the traditional self-care, but it doesn't mean I'm not doing or I'm trying to address it as part of my
Hmm.
like whole being. Yeah. And I don't want to get pressured or stressed into like doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yes, so
Yeah.
true. So true. All right. Going back to your company, Boone
Hmm.
LLC, I know that you offer personalized inventory planning services, if I said that
Yes.
correctly,
Yes. Yes.
for your clients. Uh, how has your unique approach helped you stand out in a competitive industry? And how do you ensure that your company stays adaptable to an ever changing and evolving market?
Yes. This is a great question. And we can definitely go a little bit deeper into like the makeup of Boone here, which we haven't discussed is in the last 7 years, I've grown the team. So it was
Hmm.
just me to start. And today I have a full team of consultants, all female, and
Hmm.
everybody works part-time. So it's kind of the start of our very unique value proposition to the clients, and why we stand out in the industry is because I've brought together a team of highly seasoned, similar to me, past corporate planners, inventory planners, demand forecasters who are able to understand how it's best practice in corporate, but adapt it to the needs of a startup brand. So having this very nimble team that is flexible, that understands a variety of ways that it could be done, and then
Hmm.
having the brands who are looking for very personalized, like, hey, my business is unique because of XYZ. We're like, great, we will absolutely address that. And then we take a very high touch, white glove approach where we try to make every client feel like they're our only client, even though we never work for anybody full time. It's always fractional. And
Hmm.
as I said, my team all works part time. Back to that idea to have like a non traditional, non corporate ability to blend your life and work
Hmm.
together. So we have a unique team that supports unique clients, and in a fractional, I'm sorry, in a functional area that is very niche, right? So if you
Hmm.
were to right now Google retail consulting firms, okay, you'll get a
Hmm.
lot of things. You'll understand that there are people out there doing great work at being your fractional CFO and managing the
Hmm.
finances, or being your CMO and managing the marketing, doing social media, doing operations, right? And moving the
Hmm.
products from China and over, and the logistics side of it. There's not that many getting as niched down as we are, where we are like, we will be personalized inventory management and forecasting for you. It's a very narrow portion of the entire brand development and product based business needs. We stand for this one thing and we do it really well. The other sort of competitive advantage that we have over other people kind of doing a similar thing is we have a whole package in that very niche area. So think about, we're talking about inventory. Boone will do everything from code, and I don't mean code in
Mhm.
like the back end. I mean like attribute
Mhm.
your data. We'll get in and we'll roll up our sleeves literally and dig into the data and do the work in Excel. We'll
Mhm.
also like present to your CFO. So we can kind of go like an A to Z approach. We're not just one that's going to sit there and make recommendations. We actually do the work, and we
Mhm.
do repetitive work. We do like recurring tasks that are needed to kind of maintain your inventory management. I actually liken inventory management a lot to exercise and going to the gym. You can't, it kind of hurts the first time. You're like, I don't want to do this. I've got to learn these exercises. My body doesn't know what I'm doing, but you got to keep going too. It's not a
Mhm.
one time you go to the gym and everything's set. So inventory management is like that too. And Boone tends to stick with clients. Our clientele have been with us many for, 18 months or longer, as we sort of get them in that rhythm of like how to really manage this until they're ready to take it back or take it on internally for them. So we just take a very, very personalized approach, as the
Mhm.
website always says, and try to support as many mission-based female-founded companies as we possibly can. As like, the reasons why we, as myself and my team, are here at Boone is to do good in the retail world instead of being, in the corporate job.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing so many great things there. I love everything that you shared. And I also do love the unique aspect and the structure that you've built with part-time work as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's so unique in the workforce overall, finding part-time work that offers such um broad, or not broad, but such a custom offering and that you offer to your clients. And
Yeah.
for my own curiosity,
Yeah.
what inspired the name Boone?
Yes, of course. A lot of people ask this and they think it has something to do with my name. It does not.
Uh-huh.
Actually, if any of you are crossword enthusiasts, you may have seen the word Boone come across your crossword puzzles, or you'll hear it now, or you'll
Hmm.
find it now. It's actually an English word. It means something that's additive or helpful. So I
Oh.
named the company thinking that I didn't want it to say exactly what we did. I just wanted it to be
Hmm.
something that we're going to add value and be helpful. Um,
Hmm.
and people will say like, oh, you did a boon for my business. Like that's how you'll
Hmm.
see it in a written way, or it'll now be in a crossword puzzle often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so creative. I love that. That's so unique and
Yeah.
creative. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
And as we begin to close out, I want to ask you one last question here as
Hmm.
far as those who are listening who may have or be facing their own personal or professional challenges. Is there any particular piece of advice that you would give them to tapping into their own grit and finding the strength to overcome their obstacles while they're deep into them?
Oh my gosh. I literally am wearing this jacket and I still just got chills at my arms and trying to put myself back in, my hardest days. And I think, if I have to give advice, it's like to believe in yourself
Mhm.
100%. Like you have it, but that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Right.
Mhm.
So know that you're strong, know that you can do this, but reach out for help to your network, to your professional network, to your personal network, to your friends and family. Like, I didn't do this alone. No way. Not
Mhm.
any of it. Not the personal side, not the Boone business side. So
Mhm.
believe in yourself and ask for help.
Well, what a great piece of advice there, Mary. And for everyone listening, can you just share with everybody where they can find you online, on social? Where can they locate you and follow along on your journeys?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you can find the company at boon-llc.com. You can find us
Mhm.
on all the social media platforms. They're all linked on the website at the bottom. You can
Mhm.
find me personally on Instagram at Mary_momentary if you want to follow along with all the kid chaos as well. So,
Love that. Well, I'll definitely be sure to include all the links in your show notes as well. So no one has any trouble finding you, both Boone
awesome.
and as well as yourself.
Yeah.
And Mary, again, thank you so much for sharing your powerful story with us. You're quite an inspiration, really.
Oh,
I
thanks.
love your story, and it's really a testament to resilience. So
Oh,
thank you so much for being a guest on
yes.
this episode and empowering others to lift themselves up and continue moving forward when they face challenging times.
Yes. Thank you for having the platform and letting people tell their stories to help others. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.